Hi, I'm Luke Searveld. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Gaffer. Today we're going to talk about the Aputure Storm 1200X. And we're going to compare it with some other lights. And the first light we're going to compare it to is daylight. I got this idea from Tim Kang when he was talking to John Roche about this unit. And so do check out that episode. Probably on Gaffer Salon, also on the Gaffer Salon YouTube channel. Now, I've got a mirror outside and it's got pretty direct light that's coming from that side of the house, over the house, and coming right through. And just to take it down a bit to make it more manageable, I'm bringing it through two different layers of diffusion. So the first layer, the source is a little bit smaller, and then it's blooming out on this, which is basically a 4x4. So we've got this diffusion here, and then we've got another diffusion roll out there. And this is, I don't know, I think it's 129, but I just had it on a roll that was sitting around in the garage. So here we've got Mr. Bright mirror, and the mirror is getting the sun that's coming right up above the house. So that's what we've got going for this first setup coming through. And then I'm blocking sort of any extraneous light, but you know, there's still ambience coming through. And in terms of control, we'll have the C800 will give us some readings, and the 858 as well. And then we've got a little Hollyland monitor that shows us what we've got, and we'll be running blackout with a Cerise and transmitter. And then we've got this blocked off for now, but eventually we'll have our different units out here on the front step. Here you can see this is the 1200X. Looks very similar to the 1200D. Right now I've got the widest intensifier on. So it says wide, and I'm figuring that the 45 means 45 degrees. And then similar control box. The cool thing that you'll notice is that now there is a way to lock your Bowens. There is no sort of extra pins or whatever that you have to worry about. You just have to lock in your Bowens as you like. There are some extra places to attach other grippage, but other than that, pretty similar to what you're used to. All right, so we'll get to that in a minute. Now, in terms of daylight, as Tim Kang was talking to John, he also mentioned the fact that, you know, daylight is not a perfect light in terms of what we're used to with our planking curves and with our green magenta. When I metered the sun direct outside, you know, in sort of 10:30 in the morning, it was 5,300 Kelvin. But it also required sort of an eighth magenta to get it back to sort of zero. Now, we know that daylight is all over the place. And so that's why you want to have a tunable white unit, not just something that is locked to 5,600 or 6,500 or whatever it is. You want something that is tunable. And now, to sort of add to the discussion by Tim and John, I'm using this example of daylight on white because that's you know, part of that discussion. And then how do the units that we have available to us get us close to that daylight? Now, obviously, you know, this daylight is warmed up with the gel, has a touch of green, needing, you know, magenta. Let's see how our lights can do that. And the 1200X is making, you know, somewhat of a change here. And per that discussion, you know, the BLAIR system is 5 different colored emitters to create a tunable white. So BLAIR is for, you know, blue, lime, amber, indigo, red. And instead of the usual RGB and then warm white, cool white, RGB for your green magenta, and then warm to cool for the difference between a 2800 and a 6000 or 10,000 even. So here Aputure is going to a completely different system than they've had in all their other units, and they're giving us more output, because usually their X units would be about half the output of their daylight only units. Now here they're giving us more output in the bicolor unit or in the tunable white unit than they have in the past. We'll see if that's true. So here's the Aputure Lightstorm 1200D. Color without diffusion, 5543, pretty much right on, and no color correction needed. 190 foot candles here. Here is the Godox 1200 bi, and without diffusion, color was 5600, spot on, and no need for green magenta correction. And then output, I had 190 foot candles to here. And this is in its widest intensifier, there 60 degree. So there are 4 intensifiers with Godox, and this is the 60 degree. All right, and then if we go to tungsten, 3200, yep, no need for correction, and it's like 3100, 160 foot candles. Now we have the Nanolux Evoke 1200B, 5600, 100%. In terms of spectrum, it was 5300 Kelvin, and then just under an eighth magenta. 200 foot candles. So now if we go to 3200, let's just give that a quick whirl. We don't have green magenta that we can add to it, unlike the 2400B. So that this is, earlier model in that sense, about 3100, and no need for correction. So in those 2 slots, pretty much spot on like the others, 190. Interesting. I don't know that I had compared those before, but the fact that they had both their 5600s pretty much spot on, there's just no green magenta to be played with either of those units. Okay. All right, now it's time to check out the Aputure Storm 1200X. And if things look just a little bit different than before, it's because this is a different day. The first time around, I missed something. I was checking between the CIE and the Blackbody, but I hadn't checked between constant and max mode. It was Andrew Locke and John Roach that kind of like, you should check that. Because here I had taken the reading and gotten, 97 foot candles. And that just seemed half the output of the other units I had been testing. So now let's put it on max mode and see what changes. Oh, 300 foot candles. Well, that's another 100 foot candles beyond where the other units were. So we have some impressive output gains when we go to max mode. Let's get back to the discussion between Tim and John and why I wore this white t-shirt. Right off the bat, I messed up by having the sun filtered through 2 layers of diffusion, which kind of warmed up that light. However, I do notice that the 1200D and 1200 bi lean a little pink. Other than that, the changes between the whites are probably more about camera exposure. Color does matter, and like Tim and others have said, when a client's product needs to be a certain color, having units that can get you there is critical. But overall, giving lighting people tools with a fuller spectrum is a worthwhile goal. The next section will be a bit dry and could probably be replaced with a chart. But at least stick around long enough to check out the change in the spectrum that the 1200X provides. Now, because there's such a difference between constant and max, maybe we should go back and check at different intensities and see where the color is. Oh yeah, here it is. So white light standard. Okay, so hit that. We've been in the CIE, and let's go to Blackbody. And we'll see if that changes our readings at all. 56 spot on and no need for correction. Now let's just go to 50%. And that's very little difference. So it's sticking with it. Okay, now let's go to 25. 55, so we lost a little bit of Kelvin, but still no need for color correction. Then let's go to 10%. 5300, but color correction is still good. We'll go down to 5. We're at 5100 now, but still our color correction is looking good. So then let's just go to 1%, just a glow. And we're at, okay, now we're at about 4,000. So now we'll go to CIE and see what the increments are like. Now we're at 55, 5600 basically, and then 1.2. We got the 2 blue spikes, but we've got 54 and 1.2 magenta. So I'd say that's like on the way to a quarter magenta. So that's just closer to daylight. Now let's see where we go if we bring this down to 50. So we'll bring it down to 50, 5500. And that's pretty similar. Now we'll go to 25. That's changing quite a bit. So that's 4,700. And then here we go to 10%. We're back up to 53 and 8th magenta. And then let's go to 5. 5 is 5,000 and an 8th magenta. And last but not least, 1%, 3,700 Kelvin. So yeah, it changes quite a bit there. Now we're going to go to Blackbody and constant mode and see what our increments are as we dim. We've got some work going on out in the street, and since I have the door open, so here it goes. And now we've changed our output because we are once again 97 foot candles. Blackbody. No need for correction, and 5600. So now we go to 50%. Okay, so Kelvin, 5500, pretty close. Let's go to 25. 5300, still no correction needed. 10%, 4300 now, still no correction needed. And down to 5, about the same, 4300. And then we'll go down to 1. And I can't imagine that 3,500, but no correction needed. So there you go. What I'm gathering from this is CIE daylight is going to be closer to daylight if you're trying to match it with actual sun out there. And of course, you know, sun changes color, but at least it's a closer value than if you're in Blackbody. Blackbody, you're on a stage, you have control of everything. You have to choose if you want to be in constant mode, where those increments stay pretty even throughout the dimming range, or you want to be in max mode, get maximum output out of your unit. So then just a couple other notes, putting that head lead onto the head of the unit. It's really simple. You just line up the white lines, and then it's a simple click and a simple click off. There's no real, heavy pulling or pushing that's needed. It's just a real simple, easy connection. So that's nice. And then just, important to know, you need to make those changes in the control box between CIE and Blackbody or max and constant before you start controlling it remotely. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.
Yeah, it kind of jumped the shark a couple episodes ago.
You need to get kicked off the internet.
I want to
I want to have a meet the grip show.
That's it right there. Over there by craft service eating a donut.
Our main source is a soft panel into a DOP Choice Air Glow with its face open, going through an 8x8 of bleached muslin. We swung in a matte light for a backer, and initially we had a Fresnel unit giving us a sun hit on the background. But we were still missing some ambience, so we smashed the 1200X into the ceiling and then realized we liked what that was doing on its own without the Fresnel. We've had to wait quite a while for this fixture. But during that wait, technology and personnel changes meant that we got a very interesting tool with this release. I'd like to shout out the team at Aputure and Blackout Lighting Console for creating a working profile that made it possible to control the unit remotely ahead of the launch. My apologies for not getting into the tungsten side of things with the 1200X. It'll have to wait for another time. Meanwhile, happy lighting.